Are INFJs confused in whatever decision they have to make, or is it just my problem? I have been confused in big decisions. I think I would need more information from you to answer that question specifically. I would want to know how old that you are. I want to know what decision that it is that you're trying to make and why you feel like you're confused about it. When I was in high school, I didn't want to graduate high school. And that was because I knew that I had to go to college or that I had to make a decision about my life. And I had no idea what that was. I genuinely believed that I would get married by the time I was 20 years old. And so for me, going to college was a waste of time because I wasn't going to work. Like, I didn't need to do that. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was going to get married and have a baby right away. And, that was what I had decided would be my life. So when I was in high school, I hadn't met somebody yet, and I didn't know how I was going to meet the love of my life and, how it was all going to come together. But I just felt like that was what was going to happen. And so when I graduated high school, I hadn't met somebody, and I felt like I was in this crisis of like, what am I going to do with my life? And so I ended up going to college because that was like the backup plan. And thank God that I did, because here I am 18 years later, and I still haven't met the love of my life. And as it turns out, I actually did have to work, and I'm glad that I went to college. But typically when you're younger, it's a lot more difficult to make decisions, because especially if you're high school or college age, because people put this pressure on you that you have to make decisions that affect the rest of your life when you're very young. And even if you're 18 or 20 years old, you don't feel like you're young, but you really are. And people act like, whatever your chosen career is, you're going to do that for the rest of your life. But that's not really accurate, because most people don't, especially millennials. I read a stat that says that millennials will have 9 different careers in their lifetime, and that's not jobs, that's careers. That's totally different things that you're going to do. So, I think that when you're young, if you're having a problem making a decision, that the problem is that there's too much pressure and not enough information. And there's this feeling of you have to do this one thing for the rest of your life. And especially too, like when I went to college, I have $70,000 worth of student loans. And, there's a lot of pressure to pay that back, and not really a lot of money, right? You look at that student loan and you're like, is my whole life going to be defined on whether or not I can pay that back? And what happens if I can't? Am I going to jail? What happens? And so I feel like that's a lot of why we can't make decisions, or why we find it difficult to make decisions, because there's just a lot of pressure, and there isn't a lot of, what do you want to do? What feels good? What feels right? It's more like, what makes the most logical sense? What are you going to make the most money with? How can you get this done quickly? Especially in college, a bachelor's degree is called a 4-year degree. A lot of degrees that you have actually take you 5 years. And for me, that felt like a failure. Like, I can't take an extra year. That makes me one of the people who don't learn very quickly. Does that mean I have a learning disability? Does that mean that I'm like have a low IQ? Like, am I like mentally retarded if I can't get this done in the amount of time that most people get it done? And the answer is no. I don't know why people call it a 4-year degree, because it takes most people 5 years to do it. So I think that there's just a lot of pressure, a lot of misrepresentation on how things should be. And there's a lot of like peer pressure to do the same things that everybody else is doing. When I was in college, I watched all of my friends get married, and then I watched all of them have babies, and I felt left out and alone. And I just felt like there was something massively wrong with me, because I wasn't meeting the right guy, and I wasn't getting married, and I wasn't having babies. And then years later, I watched a lot of them get divorced. and then I didn't feel so bad. And now I feel like I skipped the first divorce and I can just move on to the love of my life, hopefully. So I think that's why a lot of people have problems making decisions. I think the other thing is that our families put a lot of pressure on us, and we feel a lot of pressure from our friends, and we either the school that you go to or the place that you work at, we feel pressure to be like everybody else, and we're just not like everybody else. And there isn't enough understanding and acceptance of different personality types. There's just not nowadays.
Learn more about your INFJ personality on my podcast, The Quiet Ones. The Quiet Ones is a weekly show where we dive into understanding self-love, depression, anxiety, and so much more from an INFJ perspective. I offer up in-depth coaching and unmatched empathy. Join me for an amazing personal growth experience. The Quiet Ones podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and at thequietonespodcast.com.
Hi there. I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm working very hard to produce content that will help you, and I really, really appreciate your support. Also, if you want some more inspiration, check out this video right here.